Natikom merħba għal programmi ieħor Dinja Ewropa. Nhar it-tlieta li għadda kienet ġurnata importanti ħafna fejn fiha tħabbru r-riżultati tal-istħarriġ tal-Eurobarometru għall-istaġun tar-rebbija. U dan l-istaġun u din l-istatistika kienet importanti aktar forsi mis-soltu illa li timmarka eżattament sena mill-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropej li ħajsiru il-sena d-dieħla propju f'Ġunju 2024. U aħna min qed jisma' min qed isegwi dan il-programm il-ħamis qegħdin fil-ġurnata propja, ġifieri it-8 ta' Ġunju huwa sena minn meta ħajkolna l-elezzjonijiet f'pajjiżna. U tajjeb li llum niffukaw dan il-programm u niffukaw l-attenzjoni tagħna fuq ir-riżultati li ħarġu kemm fuq livell Ewropew bejn is-27 pajjiż membru u kemm ir-riżultati li ħarġu mill-istħarriġ li sar f'pajjiżna. Hemm oqsma li huma simili, hemm oqsma li aħna l-Maltin spikkajna xi ftit jew wisq fihom. Hemm oqsma pożittivi u oħrajn inqas pożittivi. Fil-fatt dan l-istħarriġ kien maqsum fuq tliet partijiet li ikopru il-ħajja tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Fil-fatt l-ewwel parti hija dwar is-sena mill-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropew. Il-ħajja fl-Unjoni Ewropea l-iktar iffukata fuq id-demokrazija u l-kwalità tal-ħajja u anka il-perċezzjoni ta' ċittadini kemm dwar l-Unjoni Ewropea in ġenerali kif ukoll dwar il-Parlament u r-rol tiegħu fil-Unjoni Ewropea. Sa nibdew dan il-programm billi nisimgħu il-messaġġ tal-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola eżatt kif ħarġu ir-riżultati ta' dan l-istħarriġ.
In a year's time, all Europeans will be called to vote in the European Parliament elections, to make their voice heard and to pave the future of our Union, to stand up for all the issues which are important to all of us. The latest Eurobarometer shows that interest in these elections is increasing. More people are interested, and 2 out of 3 say that they would likely vote if the elections are held next week. Over the past years, we have experienced huge challenges: pandemic, war, energy crisis, inflation, disinformation, climate change. But we have delivered. Europe has provided solutions, and Europeans appreciate this. The support for Ukraine remains high, and 2/3 say that they are optimistic about the future of Europe. Now is the time to work even harder, to deliver more, to reform and to regenerate. I call on everyone, and particularly our young people, to go and vote, to keep our democracies alive, and to shape the European Union that we will live in. Don't let others decide. Vote.
Fil-kuntest li għexna kemm bil-pandemija, kemm bi-Brexit u kenna wkoll kontesti oħrajn u issa fil-kuntest tal-gwerra li għadha għaddejja aktar minn sena u nofs issa fl-Ukrajna bl-invażjoni Russa, iċ-ċittadini Ewropej jidher li qed jagħtu aktar każ pożittiv u jgħidu li għandhom impatt pożittiv bix-xogħol tal-Unjoni Ewropea, bid-deċiżjonijiet li jittieħdu u anke kif qed jiġu ittrattati dawn is-sitwazzjonijiet li l-kol kemm aħna qed ngħixu fihom. Fil-fatt qed jarfu li hemm ammont ta' pożittività fil-ħajja taċ-ċittadini Ewropej u l-maġġoranza temmel l-Unjoni Ewropea anke qed tagħmel l-aħjar ħaġa billi tappoġġja u tgħin lill-Ukrajna. Sa nisimgħu issa dak li kellu xi jgħid il-kelliem ewlieni u d-Direttur Ġenerali tal-Komunikazzjoni tal-Parlament Ewropew dwar din l-istatistika.
In a difficult international context, elections at all levels are more important than ever. We can never take democracy for granted. We may think we live in liberal democracies and that we are protected by the collective umbrella of the rule of law and fundamental rights, but cast your eyes around Europe today and you will see plenty of examples of how democracy is being challenged internally or externally. The most important protection we have of our freedoms is the guarantee of elections every few years at local, regional, national, and yes, why not, European level, where our elected representatives are chosen by everyone equally and fairly. Every layer of government has an impact on our everyday lives, and every set of elected representatives are accountable to the people who elect them. Elections are a key part of our democracies, probably the key part. Of course, it's a responsibility to citizens to use their right to vote if they wish, to influence the outcome, but to make an informed choice, they need to know who the representatives are, what they do, and whether they have made a difference. Representatives of the media have the vital role of reporting, analyzing, and digesting what the European institutions are doing and informing the public about what has been decided, how, by whom, so that they can then make their own informed choice next year. And thanks for this. Thanks for your role. This Eurobarometer survey contains some traditional questions concerning the image of the EU in the eye of public opinion and the priorities that people think we should be focusing on, but it also contains an indication of respondents' awareness of and interest in the next European elections. One of the strengths of this survey, by the way, is that it can be compared with the one that we carried out before the previous elections in 2018. Let me maybe underline a couple of elements before Philip takes the floor for a more complete presentation. Three major figures I would like to underline: 71%, 61%, 69%. 61%. After Brexit, the pandemic, and now the war in Ukraine, and the leading role that the EU has played in this crisis, or because of this crisis, 71% of respondents recognize the impact of the EU actions on their lives. Positive impact, negative impact. This is to people to decide, as for each kind of election and each kind of political level. You don't vote because you agree or you disagree. You vote because you know that you can make an impact. Another significant finding is that 61% of citizens think it's positive to be part of the EU. 27% think it's neither a good nor a bad thing. And only 11% say that it's a bad thing being a member of the European Union. And remember that before Brexit, in some countries, percentages of acceptance in some of these countries were below 50%. After more than a year, after the war started, now 69% of citizens think the EU is doing the right things in helping Ukraine. So the war fatigue is not apparent, at least not in the polls. And what about the European elections? The figures coming from this survey are, I would say, overall quite good, better than 1 year before the last elections. And they are probably the logic consequence of the increased visibility of the EU, the visibility that the EU has achieved during this legislature. 67% of citizens say they would vote if the elections were held next week. Of course, we know that we cannot take this figure for granted, but in 2018, this same figure was much lower, was 58%, and turnout was 51%. Now, the interest is 9 points bigger than in 2018. Let's expect this increase will be there as well during the elections night, depending, of course, on what will happen during this last year of the legislature. And maybe a last reminder, or for journalists, people who didn't follow elections 4 years ago, in 2019, turnout increased 8 points from the 42% of 2014 to 50.5%. In other words, 20% more voters than during the previous elections, with increases in 20 out of the 28 member states at that time. And maybe just one last message. Maybe you know that this week on Friday and Saturday, we will hold in Strasbourg the European Youth Event, gathering 10,000 youngsters coming from all member states, most of them first voters. Philippe today, but with more details next Friday in Strasbourg, will also present some figures about what we could expect from young people, and more important or more interesting, what young people can expect or would like to expect from the European Union and the European Parliament.
Dan l-istħarriġ tal-Eurobarometru fl-istaġun tal-rebbija sar matul ix-xahar ta' Marzu. Fil-fatt sar bejn it-2 ta' Marzu u 26 ta' Marzu u għalih kienu intervistati 26,376 persuna minn madwar is-27 pajjiż membru tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Interessanti ħafna li ħafna mill-intervisti il-maġġoranza kważi assoluta tal-intervisti saru which in which u allura dak li jkun ma jkunx jista' anka ikun aktar veritier f'dak li qiegħed iwieġeb. Fil-fatt dawk li rispondew kellhom il-fuq minn 15-il sena. Se nsegwu ir-riżultati fuq livell Ewropew billi nisimgħu l-ispjega ta' Philipp Schulmeister li huwa id-direttur tal-kampanji. Wara din l-informazzjoni mbagħad nidħlu aktar fid-dettall f'dak li rigwarda dak li qalu il-Maltin u x'qed iħossu il-Maltin kemm dwar l-Unjoni Ewropea kif ukoll dwar il-Parlament Ewropew u l-sitwazzjoni ta' ħajjithom bħala ċittadini tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Però qabel xejn nisimgħu fuq livell Ewropew ir-riżultati tal-istatistika kif ħarġet minn dan l-Eurobarometer.
Do you know that there will be European elections, and if so, when? The options would be this year, 23, next year, any month, 24, May or June 24, so specific, or in 2 years' time. And what we can say is that already compared to autumn 22, our last Eurobarometer survey with this question, we have an increase of 9 percentage points to 45% who know the elections will take place next year. 28% today already know the exact date, as in May or June 2024, in itself an increase of 9 points compared to 2018. So first point of what I would like to show, indeed, people know that something is going to happen, that the European elections are coming, and they know to a higher degree than they did 5 years ago. When we're looking at the interest in the European elections, so we know they're coming, we know when they will take. Does it interest me? Yes, it does, and to a higher degree than we had in 2018. 56% today would say, I'm interested in these European elections, plus of 6 percentage points compared to 5 years ago. And the youth interest, which is very interesting for us also, equally increases by 6% from 43% to 49% in 2023. So again, from the point of interest, a very promising starting position, at least for the political discourse and debate that is to be had over the next year. And this rise in interest we can see across all EU member states, increasing in 25 member states. Only in Cyprus and Slovakia I see a relatively small decrease in interest. Highest interest, Netherlands, Ireland, Germany, Sweden, Finland and Malta. And the largest increases overall I would have in Latvia, in Italy, Poland, Belgium and Greece up by 10% and more. Also here you see it again with the spread, starting with Netherlands, Ireland, Germany, Finland and Malta, and ending Greece, Slovenia, Bulgaria, France, Czechia and Slovakia at the other end of the spectrum. Voting propensity. Question, if the next European elections were held next week, how likely would you be to vote in these elections on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being not likely at all, 10 very likely? We group this in likely, not likely, and neutral. 7 to 10 would say they are very likely. Likely to go to vote, 67%. Not likely, 17%, and 15 have a neutral assumption to this. We had a similar question back in 2018. The wording was not exactly the same. The meaning was, but the wording was not the same. So methodologically, we cannot directly compare, but nevertheless, 9 percentage points higher likelihood to vote than compared to 2018. Again, this is not the turnout on voting day itself, the 9th of May 2024, but if 2018 and the figures that we had were any indication to what we saw in 2019, I would say awareness, interest, likelihood to vote is, as I said, a good starting point. Because 6 percentage points more than 2018 say it's important to vote in the European Parliament elections. Low importance goes down, medium importance goes down, high importance increases. So all that tells the story. People know it's coming, they're interested in it, they find it important and necessary to go to vote. Why? First reason, it's their duty as citizens, and that fits into the overall democracy narrative. Democracy is seen by citizens for years now as one of the key values of the European Union, specifically in the context of the past years, safeguarding democracy as a priority for the European Parliament, as a key value for the European election, also reflected here in this standard indicator that we are asking in each of our surveys. Life in the EU, democracy and the standard of living. Democracy remains the first value the European Parliament should defend in priority. And now, sorry, okay, threw me a little bit. 37% say democracy should be the first value the European Parliament should defend, followed by protection of human rights in the EU and worldwide, freedom, speech and thought, and the rule of law. You see, over the past year, and even if we go a little bit further back, there is not much movement here. Democracy is and always has been one of the core values, together with human rights and the freedom of speech and the rule of law, always have been in the top range of our value questions. We asked following aspects, a series of different aspects of democracy in the European Union and the satisfaction of citizens when it comes to this. Free and fair election comes out with 70% as the most important aspect of democracy in the European Union, followed by freedom of speech and the possibility for citizens to participate in political life. But it would be amiss not to mention media diversity and the rule of law. These are the top 5 elements, aspects of democracy people would say they are the most satisfied with in the European Union. This is something also that has been mentioned before. Over 3/4 of Europeans continue to approve the European Union's support to the Ukraine. That is, in the overall context also of the economic development, cost of living rise over the past year, a crucial and core message. There is no, at least not in this survey, there is no war fatigue. On the contrary, we even have a plus of 3 percentage points since autumn 22 who say they strongly support the European Union support to the Ukraine. You will also find in the survey report a geographical representation where the different countries stand on these questions. Sweden, Finland, Netherlands, Portugal and Denmark in the top 5, with Ireland and Lithuania coming in above 90% support for what the European Union is doing in this area. lowest at the under end, Slovakia, Greece with 51%, Bulgaria 54, 58, 61, then to Austria. That would be the spectrum as we see it. And this increasing or stable support for the support for Ukraine is important also in this context. Because half of respondents consider that their personal standard of living has already been reduced or will reduce over the next year. 29% say has not yet happened, but I think that this will be the case over the next year. So there is these two elements to the story. The citizens see and feel on the one hand that the crisis has an impact on their personal life, on their standard of living, but it does not impact negatively on the support that the European Union is giving for Ukraine. It does not impact negatively on how they see democracy in the European Union, and as we will see a little bit further on, it does not impact negatively on the opinion, on the way they see, on the image they hold of the European Union and the value of being a member of the European Union. 71% say the European Union's action have an impact on their daily life. Yes, very clearly also not asked whether this is a positive or a negative impact. It has an impact. We feel that what the European Union does impacts my life. It's for the political side to argue what kind of impact it is, whether this is good or bad. But the impact is there. And we see this with a relatively small spread across the European Union from 87% in Cyprus and Malta down to 60% in Bulgaria, Estonia, Italy and Latvia, who say, yes, there is an impact on my life by what the European Union is doing. In this context, media recall of the European Parliament. Have you recently read, seen, television, or heard on the radio something about the European Parliament? 62% yes, 38% no. And in general, 56% say what they have seen, read, or heard has given them a generally favorable impression of the European Parliament. And now, disassociate from the figure just before, what's important to me is, and this you will see in all the standard indicators when it comes to image of the European Union and the European Parliament, there is no significant, statistically significant impact of what has happened over the past 2-3 years on the image of the European Parliament or the image of the European Parliament, the European Union. So again, to bring it together, they feel that something is happening, they feel it on the personal standard of living, the support to the European Union stays the same, the support to the European, to the action in the Ukraine stays the same, and the interest in the European election goes up. Here we have a decrease in the Parliament's role from 63 to 54, but again we're staying more or less within the range that we have since the last European elections, and the positive perception of the EU membership remains stable with 61% since autumn 22, and actually, if you look at it, already quite some time longer. I'm ending on this slide. Optimism for the future of the European Union. It's a little bit the spring message of the spring survey, if you want. 7-point increase in optimistic when it comes to the future of the European Union, and a decrease of 7% when it comes to I'm pessimistic about the future of the European Union, which, closing the circle, makes the interest in the European elections 24 rising up.
Hemmhekk smajna l-informazzjoni li jaddilna Filip Schulmeister waqt konferenza tal-aħbarijiet quddiem il-ġurnalisti biex kulħadd jieħu l-ewwel indikazzjonijiet ta' dawn ir-riżultati li ħarġu minn dan l-istħarriġ li ingħata ħafna u ħafna importanza kif edna fil-bidu ta' dan il-programm minħabba li huwa sena qabel l-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropej. U issa se ninħarsu ftit dwar l-istħarriġ u riżultati kif ħarġu minn Malta. Fil-fatt ħankunu qegħdin naraw minn qed isegwi fuq newsbook.com.mt anka il-riżultati kif maħruġa mill-Uffiċċju tal-Parlament Ewropew f'Malta li għalih ukoll kienu mistiedna il-ġurnalisti biex isegwu u jifmu dawn ir-riżultati. F'Malta fil-fatt l-istħarriġ sar bejn 516 il-persuna kollha l fuq minn 15 il-sena u l-maġġoranza ta' dawn l-intervisti saru wiċċ imwiċċ oħrajn saru remote. Sa nibda billi nindika wkoll l-istatistika fejn kien hemm aktar spunti li wieħed tajjeb li jaħseb fuqhom minn l-istatistika kollha li ħarġet. Fil-fatt 87% tal-Maltin jirrikonoxxu li l-Unjoni Ewropea għandha impatt pożittiv fuq pajjiżna u 69% huma sodisfatti bix-xogħol li qiegħed isir speċjalment fil-qasam diġitali u anka fejn tidħol is-saltna ta' dritt dak li ħafna drabi nitkellmu dwarha anka f'dan il-programm dwar ir-rule of law. Fil-fatt 64% jafu wkoll bl-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropej tas-sena id-dieħla, però dan jimmarka tnaqqis ta' 24% fuq l-Eurobarometer survey li ħareġ fil-ħarifa li għaddiet. In ġenerali però fl-Unjoni Ewropea kif smajna diġà kien hemm żieda ta' 17% li huma aktar konxi li se jsiru l-elezzjonijiet is-sena li ġejja. 66% tal-Maltin jgħidu li beħsibhom jivvutaw u dan huwa 2% inqas milli ħarġu fl-istess elezzjonijiet tal-2019. Ovvjament għadna sena l-bot u dan it-2% ovvjament nittama li bl-informazzjoni u anka bil-kampanji li jkunu qegħdin isiru anka mill-Uffiċċju tal-Parlament Ewropew f'Malta ikunu jistgħu jinelbu u aktar Maltin isibu ċans u anka isibu l-ħeġġa li joħorġu jivvutaw. Interessanti ħafna li din hija kontrarju ta' dak li jingħad minn pajjiżi Ewropej oħrajn. 61% tal-Maltin jgħidu li huma se joħorġu jivvutaw għal dawn l-elezzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropej biex jagħtu l-appoġġ lil partit tagħhom. Din kienet l-ewwel għażla ta' 61% tal-Maltin. Fil-fatt kontrarju għal dan il-pajjiżi tal-Unjoni Ewropea ċittadini tagħhom li wieġbu għal dan l-istħarriġ qalu li huma joħorġu jivvutaw għax huwa dover ta' ċittadin li jagħmel dan. Però jidher li l-partiti politiċi kif nafu, però meta jkollok stħarriġ toħroġ aktar evidenti, għadhom b'saħħithom ħafna u ikkaxkru lil min ukoll isegwi il-politika tagħhom biex joħroġ u jivvota anka fuq livell Ewropew biex jagħtu is-support u l-appoġġ il-partit tagħhom. 52% joħorġu jivvutaw ukoll speċifikament biex jagħtu appoġġ lil kandidat partikolari li jħossuhom qrib tiegħu. U 34% biss ta' dawk li rispondew min-naħa ta' Malta jagħtu ir-raġuni ewlenija li tkun li huwa dover ta' ċittadin li imur jivvota. Interessanti ħafna ukoll li 46% jaħsbu li bil-vot tagħhom mhux se jinbidel xejn u dan huwa l-istess sentiment fuq livell Ewropew fis-27 pajjiż membru meta inti tiġbor il-medja ta' risposti kollha fuq din il-mistoqsija ukoll huma ta' 46% li jaħsbu li bil-vot tagħhom jmorru jivvotaw jew le mhux se ssir differenza. Fit-tieni sessjoni ta' dan l-istħarriġ dik li tirrigwarda l-istat ta' ħajja ta' ċittadini Ewropej fl-Unjoni Ewropea bifukar partikolari dwar id-demokrazija u l-kwalità tal-ħajja, Hawnhekk il-Maltin jaħsbu li l-ewwel 3 prioritajiet li għandu jaħdem fuqhom il-Parlament Ewropew huma id-drittijiet umani, imbagħad id-difiża ta' demokrazija u wara id-difiża tas-saltna tad-dritt. Il-ġlida favur il-minoritajiet fis-soċjetà il-Maltin ukoll jagħtuha importanza ta' 22% kontra l-14% li tagħti il-kumplament tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Il-parti tal-istatistika tal-Eurobarometru, speċjalment fejn tidħol Malta, l-ispikkat hija dak ta' tħassib għaliex anka kienet ħadet ħafna mit-titli tal-gazzetti tagħna, tal-ġurnali tagħna u tal-portals mifruxin, mhux qed nitkellem biss għal Newsbook, però mifruxin fuq ġurnali oħrajn. Huwa itħassib dwar illi il-Maltin huma sodisfatti kif titħaddem id-demokrazija f'pajjiżna jew mhumiex sodisfatti kif titħaddem id-demokrazija Maltija hija fuq l-istess livell ta' 49%. Però meta wieħed qabbel dan ir-riżultat ma' riżultat li ħareġ fil-ħarifa li għadda, jinduna li ż-żieda f'dawk li mhumiex sodisfatti kif titħaddem id-demokrazija f'Malta żdiedu bi kważi 22% u għalhekk hija daqsxejn ta' tħassib dwar fejn sejra id-demokrazija ta' pajjiżna. Dan is-sentiment jekk wieħed janalizza sew inbidel f'temp ta' 6 xhur u għalhekk wieħed għandu jaħseb ftit x'qed jaffettwa biex il-Maltin m'għandhomx daqshekk fiduċja dwar kif qed titħaddem id-demokrazija f'pajjiżna. Tajjeb li ngħidu li fuq livell Ewropew dan is-sentiment ta' tħassib li ma jkunux sodisfatti bil-mod kif tiġi mħaddma d-demokrazija naqas f'7 pajjiżi, però mbagħad żdiedet fi-12 il-pajjiż, ġifieri 12 il-pajjiż madwar l-Unjoni Ewropea jidher li huma aktar sodisfatti bit-tħaddim tad-demokrazija f'pajjiżhom u dawn fost oħrajn fosthom hemm l-Olanda, Ċipru u anka il-Litwanja. Sfortunatament hawnhekk f'dawn l-aħħar 6 xhur Malta ġarbet l-ikbar waqa' fin-nuqqas ta' sodisfazzjon fejn tidħol it-tħaddim tad-demokrazija. Meta mistoqsija dwar l-inflazzjoni u l-kwalità tal-ħajja li qed ngħixu aħna il-Maltin, ħafna il-maġġoranza qalu li għalkemm il-kwalità tal-ħajja tnaqset xi ftit, però s'issa qatt ma sabu diffikultà biex iħallsu il-kontijiet li jitfaċċaw kull xahar f'kull household li għandna fil-pajjiż. Uħud minnhom qalu li qed isibu ftit diffikultà, però fil-maġġoranza tagħhom dejjem il-Maltin sabu mezz kif iħallsu il-kontijiet ta' kull xahar. Fuq livell Ewropew il-Maltin iħossuhom li sejrin tajjeb u jaħsbu li l-Unjoni Ewropea sejra fid-direzzjoni it-tajba, fil-fatt dan qaluh 75% ta' dawk li irrispondew. Tajjeb li ngħidu wkoll li 83% tal-Maltin taw l-appoġġ tagħhom għall-għajnuna li qed tagħti l-Unjoni Ewropea lill-Ukrajna u ħeġġew ukoll li dan jibqa' jingħata bil-mod kif irrispondew. Meta mistoqsija dwar il-vuċi taċ-ċittadin fl-istituzzjonijiet tal-Parlament Ewropew, 50% tal-Maltin iħossu li l-vuċi tagħhom hija mismuha. Dan ifisser tnaqqis ta' 21% minn survey ta' qabel. Jekk mhix mismuha f'Malta stess jidher li hemm ukoll tnaqqis ta' 27% u jekk Malta ixtinata spazju bħala pajjiż biex issemma leħena fuq l-istituzzjonijiet Ewropew kien hemm tnaqqis ta' 12%. Ovvjament nafu li l-Unjoni Ewropea anka l-Parlament Ewropew anka s-sena l-oħra wetta il-konferenza għal futur tal-Ewropa u hemmhekk ingħatat importanza kbira li ċ-ċittadini Ewropej kemm jista' jkun mill-kbar saż-żgħar u bil-kontra jagħtu l-involviment tagħhom u dak li jintqal ġie miġbur ukoll f'rapport biex l-Unjoni Ewropea tkompli taħdem dwaru u kif smajna wkoll fi Strasburgu il-ġimgħa min qed jismana il-ġimgħa qed issir ukoll laqa ta' eluf ta' żgħażagħ flimkien biex l-Unjoni Ewropea tisma' dak li għandhom xi jgħidu żgħażagħ u anke dawn ikunu aktar parti mill-politika futura tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Meta kienu mistoqsija dwar kif ħarsu in ġenerali lejn l-Unjoni Ewropea, il-Maltin iħossu li 51% hija pożittiva u dawk li kummentaw favur huma l-aktar żgħażagħ jew inkella żgħażagħ jew adulti li baqgħu jistudjaw aktar fit-tul f'ħajjithom jew inkella saħansitra għadhom jistudjaw. 48% iħarsu lejn il-Parlament Ewropew bħala istituzzjoni blenti pożittiva u 68% jgħidu li r-rol tal-Parlament Ewropew għandu jingħata aktar importanza meta jiġu deċiżi leġiżlazzjonijiet wara l-oħra. 74% jaraw li huwa taġid għal Malta li hija imsieħba fl-Unjoni Ewropea u 75% huma ottimisti li l-futur tal-Ewropa għandu jkun wieħed tajjeb, il-futur tal-Unjoni Ewropea fuq il-kontinent Ewropew. Interessanti ħafna il-fatt u niġu lejn tmiem din l-informazzjoni, interessanti il-fatt li l-Maltin iridu aktar li l-Parlament Ewropew jaħdem u jagħti aktar priorità lill-loqsma bħal bidla fil-klima, is-saħħa pubblika, il-faqar u il-ġlieda kontra l-esklużjoni soċjali. Wara dawn imbagħad jiġu drittijiet tal-konsumatur, il-ħarsien tas-saħħa ta' dritt u il-ġlieda kontra il-kriminalità u il-terrorizmu. Fuq livell Ewropew nitqablu tajjeb fejn namlu dawn l-għażliet, però fuq livell Ewropew in ġenerali il-ġlida kontra l-faqar u l-esklużjoni soċjali kienet fuq net, imbagħad tiġi is-saħħa pubblika, il-bidla fil-klima u anka issemmiet l-ekonomija li toħloq aktar xogħol fost ċittadini tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Aħna wasalna fit-tmiem dan il-programm, naf li xi ftit jew wisq kien mimli statistika, però naħseb minn irnexxilu isegwi kienet ħarsa tajba lejn kif qed iħossu b'mod in ġenerali iċ-ċittadin Ewropew u b'mod in ġenerali iċ-ċittadin Malti u naħseb stħarriġ bħal dawn ikunu importanti mhux biss fuq livell Ewropew il għaliex isiru breqqa kbira, però naħseb anka huwa importanti li il-politiku Malti jagħti titwila lejn dawn ir-riżultati u ħarsa sew lejn dak li qed jipproponi jew lejn dak u l-mod kif qed iħaddem il-politika tiegħu fil-pajjiż. Jiena nirringrazzjakom ħafna talli kontu magħna għal ġimgħa oħra, inwedkom li l-ġimgħa d-dieħla se nkunu qegħdin niddiskutu dwar suġġett importanti ħafna fosthom il-twessieħ jew l-imsieħba il-ġodda tal-Unjoni Ewropea u l-proċess tagħhom fiex wasal.